Welcome to Twilight Tales, a quiet place where history softens, time slows, and stories are meant to be drifted through, not rushed. Tonight, we travel back more than 4,000 years to the warm sands of ancient Egypt. The air is still. The Nile moves gently in the distance. Torches flicker against stone that has not yet learned how to become eternal. Before us rise the Great Pyramids, vast, silent shapes that seem less like buildings and more like thoughts made solid. Who imagined them? Who planned them? And how human hands, guided by patience and belief, brought them into being stone by stone. There will be no urgency here, only steady footsteps, careful labor, and the slow rhythm of a civilization working in harmony with the stars. Settle into a comfortable position. Let your breathing become unhurried. As this story unfolds, you may listen closely, or you may simply let the words pass through you, like wind across desert sand. This is how the ancient Egyptians constructed the Great Pyramids, a history told softly, for sleep.
Before the sun remembers its name, the plateau waits. It lies beneath a veil of blue hush, where night has not yet loosened its grip, and morning has not yet spoken. The sand breathes slowly here, rising and settling like the chest of a sleeping creature. Each grain holds the chill of stars that have just begun to fade. The sky is neither dark nor light, but suspended, a threshold color, as if the world itself is pausing, listening. Stone forms rest across the land like ancient animals curled into sleep. Their outlines are softened, rounded by centuries of wind, by the long patience of prayer and passing feet. Edges once sharp have learned gentleness. Corners have been taught surrender. Nothing here feels abrupt. Everything has been shaped by time, and time in this place moves like water beneath sand. It is said that before any stone was raised, before any hand measured or marked, this land was already chosen. Not claimed, not seized, chosen. The plateau is older than the pyramids, older than memory shaped into words. A vast table of limestone lifted quietly from the earth long before human intention arrived. It does not rise dramatically like a mountain, nor sink humbly like a valley. It simply is, level, receptive, waiting. Beneath the silence, the stone remembers pressure, remembers oceans, remembers when this place lay submerged beneath green water and drifting life. Fossils sleep inside it like sealed prayers. Where memory fades, the land remains. As dawn approaches, the air grows thinner, lighter. A faint breath of warmth brushes the surface of the stone. Shadows stretch and soften, then retreat. In this hour, the plateau becomes a chamber, open to the sky, sealed by nothing, sacred by alignment alone. Whispers tell us that those who first came here did not arrive with certainty. They came with listening. In the far distance of imagination, figures move slowly across the stone. They do not speak, Their feet touch the ground with care, as though the earth itself might startle. They watch the way shadows lean and withdraw. They follow the quiet dialogue between horizon and breath. These were priests of alignment, readers of silence. They carried no weapons, no banners, only awareness. They measured not with rope, but with patience. They watched the sun rise and fall, not once, but again and again, until its path became familiar as a heartbeat. They noticed where stars returned to the same points in the sky, night after night, marking invisible gates above the stone. They waded through floods, when the Nile swelled and spread like a silver offering across the land, and through droughts, when dust reclaimed its dominion. The plateau listened back. There is a feeling still present if one stands here long enough, that the ground remembers something we have forgotten, a low hum beneath the silence, a readiness, as if this place had always known it would be asked to carry something immense, not only weight, but meaning. Curiosity stirs softly in the mind, then settles into wonder. Why here? Why this exact stretch of earth? Why not elsewhere, where stone was plentiful, where ground was higher or closer to the river? The answer does not arrive as explanation. It arrives as atmosphere. This land is an altar, not built, but revealed. Its surface aligns with the stars in ways that feel deliberate, though no hand shaped them. Its bedrock rests stable and vast, unfractured, capable of bearing what few places could. Beneath it, deep layers of limestone formed slowly, patiently, over spans of time too large to hold in thought. Above it, the sky performs its ancient dance, the same arcs and returns, the same quiet geometry. Myth and geology blur here, like breath fogging glass. The stone is not inert, it is receptive. Marked by the moon, the plateau changes character with the hours. Under full light, it feels open, expansive, exposed. Under night, it becomes intimate, inward, protective. Stars press close, reflected faintly in polished surfaces and imagined mirrors. In this interplay, the land becomes a mediator between above and below, between what moves and what endures. It is said that places like this choose their monuments. Scenes flow without edges. Dawn bleeds into morning. Morning slides into noon. Footsteps overlap footprints left long before, until they feel like the same step repeated across time. Intention thickens in the air, then dissolves back into silence. There are no calculations here yet, no diagrams scratched into sand, no spoken plans, only alignment and reverence. Those who listened knew that building would begin long before the first stone was touched. The act of construction started with stillness, with waiting, with allowing the land to speak first. Beneath the silence, the plateau offers its consent. It does so subtly, a firmness beneath the feet, a sense of balance that feels unquestioned, a horizon that opens evenly in all directions, as if the world has been gently leveled by unseen hands. When one stands here, the body relaxes without knowing why. Breath finds rhythm, thought slows. Where memory fades, sensation remains. The Nile, far away but never absent, pulses through this place like a distant heart. Its floods bring renewal, its retreats leave fertility and promise. Though the plateau stands above the reach of water, it is never separate from the river's cycle. It watches the swelling and the retreat, year after year, century after century, learning patience. Stars mark the seasons overhead. Orion rises and falls. Sirius returns, faithful and bright, heralding the floods. These celestial rhythms are not decoration, they are instruction. They tell time when calendars do not exist. They whisper of continuity, of return. In this listening, humans learned where to place their greatest gesture. The stone waits, dust gathers in hollows, wind moves lightly across the surface, erasing nothing, changing everything. The plateau does not rush. It has already waited millions of years. A few more generations mean nothing. And yet, when the moment arrives, it will be unmistakable. Something shifts, not visibly but internally. A sense of inevitability settles. The ground feels no longer empty but prepared. The silence deepens, becoming less absence and more presence, as though the land itself has taken a breath and is holding it. It is here, in this breath, that the story truly begins. Not with stone dragged or lifted, not with ramps or tools, but with an agreement made without words. The plateau exhales. Even now, long after the builders have turned to dust, after empires have risen and fallen like tides, the land continues to listen. At night, when the air cools and the stars return, the stone seems to hum faintly, a resonance too low to hear but easy to feel. Perhaps it was never meant to explain itself. Perhaps the pyramids are not the beginning of the story, but a response to it. Here, before dawn, where the sky is still undecided and the sand breathes in blue silence, the plateau remains what it has always been, a threshold, a meeting place, a listening ground between earth and sky. Whatever was built here began long before the first stone was touched, and somewhere beneath the silence, that listening has never ended.
At the edge of the desert, where the land opens its ribs to the sky, there is a quiet wound in the earth. It appears as a quarry, though that word feels too sharp for what this place truly is. In the early light, before the sun fully claims the stone, the ground lies open like a sacred chamber. Limestone sleeps here beneath a thin crust of sun, pale and waiting, its surface still cool with the memory of night. Dust settles gently into every hollow. Silence gathers, not empty, but listening. At the center of this silence rests a single block of stone. It is half freed, half held. One side remains bound to the earth that formed it. The other has begun to remember air. Its edges are marked with patience, shallow grooves, softened lines, the quiet signatures of hands that did not hurry. The block does not look wounded. It looks paused, caught between breaths. It is said that stone resists force, but responds to attention. Beneath the silence, the quarry hums with an ancient understanding. This is not a place of conquest. This is a place of conversation. Long before the pyramids learned their names, before their shadows stretched across the plateau, the builders came here not to take, but to ask. The limestone beneath their feet was older than language, older than the gods whose names would one day be carved into temples. It had known oceans. It had known pressure. It had known darkness so complete that even time lost its shape. To touch such stone was to interrupt a long dream. And so the approach was slow. Tools were lifted gently, not in haste, but in rhythm. Copper met stone with care. Wood and fiber steadied each motion. These tools were not weapons. They were extensions of breath, of muscle guided by listening. Each strike carried intention. Each pause carried respect. Between movements there was silence, not emptiness, but consideration. Dust rose into the air like incense, drifting, settling.
catching the light. It marked time more faithfully than any shadow. When dust lingered, work paused. When it fell, hands moved again. The quarry breathed with them. Whispers tell us that songs were sung here. Not loud songs, not songs of command or triumph, but low, steady chants murmured close to the stone, their rhythms slow enough to settle the heart. These songs did not carry words meant to be understood. They carried cadence, they carried reassurance. They reminded the stone that it was not alone in its waking. The sound moved through the quarry like warmth through cold ground. It softened edges, it steadied hands, it gave shape to time. Where memory fades, rhythm remains. The emotional arc here does not rise toward triumph, it drifts inward toward tenderness. There is wonder in watching stone begin to separate from itself, but there is also care. Every cut is deliberate, every groove is measured against consequence. Remove too much, too fast, and the stone may crack, may refuse, may shatter its long-held cohesion. The builders understood this. They treated the stone as something alive, not in the way animals move, but alive in the way mountains endure. The limestone carried memory. It remembered the pressure of ancient seas, the slow compression of shells and sediment. To free it abruptly would be to erase those memories too quickly. And stone, like the human spirit, resists erasure. So the quarry became a womb. Within its open chambers, stone learned the idea of height. It learned that it would no longer lie hidden beneath layers of earth, but would one day meet the sun directly. It would feel wind. It would hear voices echo around it rather than through it. It would cast shadows instead of absorbing them.
This learning could not be rushed. Beneath the silence, belief shaped action. The builders did not speak of physics as we do now. They spoke of harmony, of balance, of awakening. A stone that was not ready would not move. A stone that was honored would rise willingly. It is said, and perhaps this is only myth, though myths often point toward truths we no longer know how to name, that certain stones responded when called by name, that chance aligned weight with will, that sound itself could persuade mass to remember motion. Legends hover here like heat above sun-warmed ground. Some speak of stones that slid across sand without leaving marks. Others tell of blocks that lifted when voices reached the right tone, the right resonance. These stories resist proof. They refuse to settle into diagrams, yet they persist, carried from mouth to ear across generations, as if something essential would be lost if they were forgotten. Historical contradictions remain unresolved, and the quarry does not offer answers. Archaeology measures grooves and tool marks. Engineering proposes methods, ramps, leverage, force multiplied by patience. All of this may be true. None of it feels complete. How did so much weight learn motion? The question lingers, unanswered, and the stone does not mind. Language in this place becomes hushed. Words slow themselves. Breath becomes audible. The quarry is a chamber of echoes, not loud ones, but subtle reverberations, felt more than heard. A strike against stone sends a vibration not only through the block, but through the body holding the tool. The builder feels the stone's response immediately. Resistance, acceptance, warning. This feedback guides the hand better than sight. Sentences lengthen here, then pause. Thought stretches, then rests. The work teaches patience by requiring it. There is no reward for haste, there is only consequence. Marked by the moon, the quarry changes at night. Silver light slides across cut faces, revealing textures invisible by day. Fossil shapes emerge briefly, then fade. The stone glows faintly, as if remembering water. In these hours, work often stopped, not because the stone could not be cut, but because it should not be disturbed while it listened to the sky. Stars wheel slowly overhead. Their light falls into the quarry, thin but precise. Some believe the builders watched these stars even here, aligning not only structures but processes. Stone freed under certain skies carried certain qualities. Timing mattered. Where memory fades, ritual holds its place. And yet, despite all care, the mystery remains. No song has been preserved, no name recorded for the stone half freed and waiting. We do not know which block would become part of which pyramid, which face, which chamber. The quarry holds countless beginnings without endings. Perhaps that is its purpose. As the chapter draws towards stillness, attention returns to the single block. It rests as it did before, one side attached to the earth, the other already dreaming of sky. Dust clings to its surface, light grazes its edge. It is neither fully ground nor fully monument. It exists between states. In that pause, everything important is contained. The future is implied but not forced. The stone has learned the possibility of rising, but it has not yet risen. Its secret remains intact, wrapped in dust and song, in breath and patience. Perhaps it was never meant to be fully understood. Perhaps some knowledge is not extracted, but encountered, only when we slow enough to listen. The quarry grows quiet again. Dust settles, tools rest, songs fade into memory. The stone waits, suspended in its long becoming. And beneath the silence, the earth remembers the moment when something heavy learned how to dream of height. The Nile enters like a long exhale. Before it is seen, it is felt, a cooling of the air, a loosening of the land's long-held breath. Moonlight rests upon its surface, not shining, but settling, as if the sky itself has lowered its face to drink. The river moves without sound that can be named. It does not rush. It does not pause. It flows with the assurance of something that has never needed to prove itself. Here, at the water's edge, the world feels unfinished in a sacred way. The boundary between earth and reflection softens. Stars appear both above and below, and for a moment it becomes unclear which direction is heaven. It is said that the Nile was not merely a river, but a passage. A road, yes, but also a ritual. The stone that would one day rise into pyramids did not begin its journey with force or command. It began here, on water that remembered the sky. The limestone blocks rested upon barges that seemed less constructed than dreamed into being. Their edges were blunt, softened by quarry dust and patient hands. When they met the river, they were no longer only stone. They became offerings. Beneath the silence, the Nile accepted them. Emotion moves gently at first, like curiosity stirred by reflection. Barges drift outward from the shore as if unsure whether they are leaving land or entering dream.
Their shadows stretch across the water, long and wavering, stitched into the mirrored constellations below. Oars touch the surface lightly, barely disturbing the river's skin. There is no struggle here. Weight does not feel heavy. Distance does not feel far. The river carries without strain. Whispers tell us that the Nile was once called the living body of a god. Its floods were not disasters, but blessings. Its retreat did not abandon the land, but revealed it anew. Each year the world dissolved into water, then returned, fertile and altered. In this rhythm, the people learned that movement and transformation were not threats, but necessities. So too with stone. To place stone upon the river was to surrender control. Current replaces grip. Balance replaces force. The barges sway slightly, rocking in a slow cadence that calms the mind. Watching them move is like watching breath itself. In, out, steady, inevitable. Language becomes liquid here. Words soften, sentences lengthen and drift. Thought loosens its sharp edges and begins to float. The Nile does not explain how it carries such weight. It simply does. As night deepens, the river becomes a corridor between worlds. On one side, the land of the living, villages quiet under stars, palms whispering softly, fires dimmed to embers. On the other, the land of intention, places chosen but not yet formed, shapes imagined but not yet raised. Between them, water holds both without judgment. Stone journeys not merely across distance, but through meaning.
Marked by the moon, the barges seem almost unreal. Their outlines blur slightly, dissolving into reflection. The stones they bear appear doubled, one above, one below, as if the river is already rehearsing the act of mirroring that the pyramids will one day perform with the sky. This is not transport as we might name it now. There are no measurements spoken aloud, no urgency. The movement is ceremonial. Each crossing feels like a prayer extended in time. Beneath the silence, the river listens. The deep exploration lingers on the season when the Nile swells beyond its banks. When the floods arrive, the land disappears. Fields vanish, paths dissolve. The world becomes water and sky, uninterrupted by edges. In this time, orientation changes, distance loses meaning. Everything floats, including memory. It is in this flooded world that boundaries soften most completely. The stone, already on water, seems to belong. It glides through a landscape without fixed points, where horizon melts into reflection. Precision emerges not from rigidity, but from repetition. The river has traced this path for thousands of years. It knows where it is going, even when the land does not. How such exactness could arise from such fluidity remains unanswered. The contradiction hovers gently, like mist rising from the surface at dawn. We know the pyramids align with astonishing care. We know their stones arrived with purpose. Yet here, on the river, everything feels improvised, surrendered, almost accidental. Perhaps this is the secret. Perhaps precision does not always come from control. It comes from trust. The Nile teaches this lesson without words. It carries what is given to it, reshapes what it touches, and releases it again, never claiming ownership. The stone that enters the river does not leave unchanged. It has been washed by starlight. It has felt the pull of the moon. It has learned to move without effort. Where memory fades, water remembers. Scrolls speak quietly of river rituals, offerings cast upon the current, names whispered and released, prayers folded into reeds. The barges themselves may have been consecrated, their wood anointed, their journeys timed to celestial signs. We cannot be sure. The evidence is fragmentary, like ripples fading behind a moving hull. Yet the feeling remains intact. Watching the barges drift is like watching time slow itself for your sake. The listener's breath begins to match the river's pace. Inhale, the barge glides forward. Exhale, the water closes behind it. Nothing is lost, nothing is rushed. Stars wheel overhead. Their reflections tremble below. The sky seems to descend, layer by layer, until it rests upon the river's surface. For a moment, everything exists twice, above and below, real and remembered. The river carries the sky.
As dawn approaches, the moon loosens its hold. Light changes temperature, shifting from silver to pale gold. The water darkens slightly, then brightens again, as if awakening reluctantly. Birds call once, then fall silent. The barges continue, unhurried, guided by a knowledge older than maps. Eventually, the river bends. Here, the current slows. The land rises gently to meet the water again. Reeds gather at the edges. The air smells faintly of earth returning. Stone approaches shore. The moment of arrival is understated. There is no announcement. The barge simply touches land, and the stone rests again upon ground. It looks the same as before, pale, solid, quiet. Yet something has changed. It has crossed a threshold. The water releases it without ceremony, just as it accepted it. No gratitude is demanded. No mark remains. The Nile keeps its secret, folding it back into its endless flow. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. The river continues on, carrying reflections, carrying stars, carrying memory itself. The stone waits at the edge of the land, patient, altered in ways no measurement can record. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. As the scene settles into stillness, the listener is left at the quiet bend of the river, watching light tremble on water, feeling the soft certainty that something immense has passed through here, not loudly, not dramatically, but gently, like a breath released into the night. And somewhere beyond memory, the Nile flows on, still carrying the sky.
At the edge of vision, where light overwhelms form, an incline appears. It rises from the sand without announcement.
pale and unfinished, its surface catching the sun until its boundaries blur into glare. The ramp does not declare itself as stone or earth, wood or brick. It simply leans upward, dissolving at its edges, as if unsure whether it wishes to be seen at all. This is the invitation, a passage that is not quite there, a gate without walls, a question shaped like assent. Beneath the silence, the air trembles faintly with heat. Dust lifts and settles again, tracing invisible lines where countless steps have already passed. The ramp feels temporary, almost shy, a structure that exists only long enough to serve its purpose, then returns itself to forgetting. It is said that no one ever fully agreed on what the ramps looked like, straight or curved, external or hidden, broad as roads or narrow as corridors of breath. Each generation of scholars imagines a shape, and each shape fades under closer listening. Nothing remains with certainty. Nothing insists on permanence. And perhaps that is the point. The emotional journey here begins in curiosity, a gentle leaning forward of the mind. How did the stones rise? What path carried them upward against weight and gravity and doubt? But curiosity soon gives way to softer ground. Doubt enters not as frustration, but as humility. The ramp refuses to be pinned down. It asks not to be solved, but to be experienced. Workers move upward in slow procession. They are not hurried, they are not strained. Their steps fall into rhythm, each foot landing where another once rested. Breath aligns with movement. Pause follows effort, as naturally as exhale follows inhale. The incline stretches ahead, but it does not threaten. It invites. The ramp feels less like an object and more like intention made visible. Stone slides upward not because the ramp forces it to, but because the moment allows it. Hands guide, bodies lean, ropes tighten and loosen in practiced cadence. The structure beneath them may shift, may erode, may be rebuilt countless times. Its exact form matters less than its function as a shared belief. Upward is possible. Spiritual meaning seeps into every step. Ascent is not merely physical, it is ritual. Each movement becomes a small prayer, not spoken aloud, but enacted. Each pause is a recalibration between body and sky, between effort and surrender. Sweat darkens the dust, muscles remember yesterday's strain and tomorrow's rest. The ramp absorbs it all without comment. Marked by the moon, the incline changes character at night. Its surface cools, shadows soften, edges that were harsh by day become forgiving. In moonlight, the ramp feels less like construction and more like a path already waiting there, revealed rather than built. Whispers tell us that some ramps were never external at all, that there were hidden paths within the body of the pyramid, internal spirals winding gently upward behind smooth stone faces. ways that existed only while believed in, sustained by shared understanding rather than visible proof. Myths murmur of passages that closed behind the last stone, leaving no trace that they had ever been. Historical contradictions gather here like drifting sand. Some argue for massive straight ramps, others for zigzagging paths, still others for ingenious internal systems that leave no scars. Each explanation fits part of the story and fails another. None satisfy completely. The ramp resists certainty. Language around it becomes symbolic by necessity. Gate, passage, veil, ascent. These words gesture rather than define. They circle the truth without touching it directly. The pacing of thought slows, mirroring the climb itself. The incline is long, but never exhausting. It stretches time rather than space. Beneath the silence, faith does the heavy lifting. Not faith in gods alone, but faith in process. Faith that repetition will accumulate. Faith that many small efforts, aligned, can overcome what seems immovable. The ramp embodies this belief. It is a testament to persistence rather than ingenuity. Where memory fades, motion remains. The workers do not need to know the ramp's final shape. They only need to trust the next step. Stone follows stone. Day follows day. The pyramid grows not through grand gestures, but through countless moments of quiet agreement. Agreement between hand and stone, between foot and ground, between human intention and something larger that allows it. As the climb continues, the ramp sheds itself. Sections are dismantled as others are built. Sand erases footprints. Wind softens edges. The structure is never complete in any final sense. It is always becoming, always adjusting. This impermanence is not a flaw. It is a feature. The ramp is designed to disappear. It serves, then relinquishes. It carries weight, then relinquishes form. Like breath, it exists only while needed. Once the stone reaches its place, the ramp has no further role to play. And so it fades. The closing reflection does not linger on measurements or materials. It allows the ramp to dissolve back into sand, into memory, into theory. Its true shape slips away, leaving no clear outline behind. What remains is the sensation of upward movement, the remembered rhythm of effort and pause, of shared breath and silent resolve. What mattered was not how the stones climbed. What mattered was that they did, carried by faith as much as force, by belief as much as muscle, by a ramp whose greatest strength was its willingness to vanish. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Some structures exist only to teach us that not all paths leave footprints. Some truths rise, do their work, and return themselves to silence. As the listener drifts toward sleep, the ramp is already gone. Only the memory of ascent remains, a gentle incline in the mind, leading upward into darkness, into rest, into the quiet certainty that not knowing is sometimes the most sacred position of all.
A single pair of hands rests upon stone. They are dusted white, the fine powder of limestone settling into every crease and line, as if the earth itself has memorized them. Fingers curl slightly, not gripping, not releasing, simply touching. The stone beneath them is cool,
steady, patient. In the stillness, a pulse can almost be felt, moving from skin into rock, then back again. This is the invitation, not a name carved into history, not a monument rising against the sky, but hands, ordinary, human, breathing. Beneath the silence, the day begins. The builders do not arrive as a crowd, they arrive as individuals, each carrying a rhythm already formed long before their feet touch the plateau. Breath finds breath, footstep follows footstep. The work does not start with command, but with alignment, a subtle settling into shared pace. It is said that the ancients did not count the way we do. They counted breath. Inhale, exhale, lift, rest. Labor unfolds not as strain, but as devotion. Movements repeat like mantras learned by the body rather than the mind. A stone is guided forward, then paused. Another breath, another step. The repetition is soothing, almost hypnotic, as if the work itself is designed to quiet thought and open something deeper. The count is not of numbers, but of heartbeats shared. Hands pass tools without words. Shoulders lean in unison. Muscles respond not to urgency, but to rhythm. When someone falters, the pace adjusts. No one is left behind. The work continues because the group breathes together. Spiritual meaning seeps into every gesture. This is Mott made physical, balance, harmony, order translated into action, not an abstract principle, but something lived, enacted moment by moment. Each stone placed correctly restores balance to the world. Each careless movement risks fracture, not only of stone, but of order itself. So care becomes sacred. Warmth builds in the hands as the sun climbs higher. Dust clings to skin, to hair, to cloth. Sweat darkens the ground briefly, then disappears. The body becomes part of the landscape, its traces as temporary as footprints in sand. Yet presence remains. The deep exploration drifts outward, beyond the plateau, into the villages that sustained this rhythm. These were not cities meant to endure. They rose with the seasons, then faded. Mud brick walls softened in rain. Fires burned low at night. Children slept to the sound of wind and distant stone. Where memory fades, daily life once unfolded. Families lived here. Meals were shared. Stories were told quietly. Voices low after long days of work. Names were spoken often, then gradually less so, then not at all. Time carried them away gently, as it always does. These people were not nameless. Even if their names no longer reach us, their presence does. It lingers in the way stone was handled, in the patience etched into every surface. A careless builder leaves sharp edges. A hurried hand leaves scars. These stones are smooth, considered, calm. They remember care. Contradictions remain about who these builders were. Some say farmers during the flood season. Others say skilled laborers, artisans, specialists. The truth likely contains all of these and more. The chapter does not force resolution. It allows complexity to breathe. Lives were brief sparks against long stone. A builder might spend a season here, perhaps several years, then vanish back into the rhythm of the Nile's rise and fall. The pyramid would outlast every one of them. They knew this, and still they worked with devotion. Why? Because meaning was not measured by duration. It was measured by alignment. Language here becomes warm, human. Words slow themselves. Touch matters more than explanation. The cadence of the story sways gently, like bodies moving in shared labor. There is no sharpness, no urgency, only continuity. Marked by the moon, the work changed at night. Fires cast soft halos, shadows stretched and merged. Hands moved more carefully then, guided by memory rather than sight. The cool air soothed tired skin. Breath steamed faintly. In these hours, silence deepened. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of concentration. Each person aware of the others without needing to look. Each movement anticipated. The stone responding differently in cool air, its surface slightly more forgiving. The builders learned these subtleties not through instruction, but through listening. Beneath the silence, the body became a measuring tool. Weight was felt, not calculated. Balance was sensed, not diagrammed. The hands knew when to push and when to wait. They learned to trust their own rhythm and the rhythm of those beside them. This trust was everything. Without it, no stone would rise. As years passed, hands changed. Older hands slowed, younger hands learned. Calluses formed and softened again. Fingers stiffened, then loosened. Some hands left the work forever. Others arrived to take their place. The rhythm continued.
Stone after stone, breath after breath. The builders did not carve their names into the pyramids. They carved something quieter, a way of working together that honored both the human and the eternal. Their legacy is not found in inscriptions, but in absence, in how little ego interrupts the form. The pyramid does not shout, it listens. As the chapter begins to close, attention returns to the hands. They are gone now. No warmth remains on the surface. No dust clings to living skin. The hands that once rested here have dissolved back into earth, into memory, into silence. Yet the stone holds something of them. Perhaps not heat, but intention. Perhaps not fingerprints, but care. If one stands close enough, quiet enough, it almost feels as though the stone remembers being touched, not roughly, not impatiently, but with respect. The silence they left is tender, not empty. It does not demand mourning. It invites rest. Perhaps it was never meant to be found, the names, the faces, the full story. Perhaps some truths are preserved only through absence, through what is felt rather than known. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. As sleep approaches, the image softens, hands resting on stone, breath slowing, rhythm dissolving into stillness. The work pauses, but it is not finished. It continues in the quiet presence of what remains.
stone indoors, and somewhere beneath its surface, the memory of human breath still counts the time. The sun does not strike the pyramid, it glides. In the final moments before evening settles, light slides carefully along an edge of stone, tracing an angle so precise it feels intentional, as though the sun itself has rehearsed this movement for thousands of years. Gold turns slowly to amber, amber to dusted rose. The line of light sharpens, then softens, then fades. Shadow answers in silence. This is the invitation, a meeting place where nothing announces itself loudly, a threshold shaped not by walls, but by alignment, a quiet understanding between earth and sky. The horizon holds steady, stretched wide and patient. The sky lowers itself gently, like a listening ear. The stone remains unmoving yet responsive. Together, they create a geometry that does not demand to be solved, only felt. Beneath the silence, something ancient is happening. The pyramid stands exactly where it should, not simply placed, but answered into position. Its edges do not fight the land, they complete it. Each face leans toward a direction that was already waiting. North accepts north, south exhales into south, east greets the returning sun, west opens itself to dusk. Geometry here is not mathematics, it is relationship. Emotion begins as wonder, that soft, widening sensation that arrives when the mind recognizes order without instruction. The body feels it first. Breath slows, shoulders drop. The sense of effort dissolves. There is nothing to fix, nothing to understand urgently. Only balance. Shadows lengthen across the plateau, moving with a deliberate calm. They stretch outward, thin and unwavering, as though guided by an invisible hand. Each shadow seems to know exactly where to fall. There is no confusion, no correction. The movement feels ceremonial, like a prayer unfolding in light. As the sun descends further, the air cools, the heat loosens its hold, the world exhales. Stars begin to appear, not all at once, but patiently, one by one, as if waiting their turn. They arrive on cue, just as they always have. The pyramid does not reach for them, it listens. It is said that the ancients did not separate earth from sky in the way we often do. To them, the heavens were not distant, but woven directly into the fabric of the land. What moved above echoed below. What endured below reflected above. The pyramid becomes a frozen gesture toward the cosmos, a still movement, an offering shaped like a mountain but born of intention. Its form does not imitate nature, it converses with it. Angles mirror celestial paths, proportions echo rhythms found in stars, in seasons, in breath itself. This is Mott, balance made visible.
Not balance as symmetry alone, but as harmony across realms, a reminder that order is not imposed, but discovered, that creation itself follows patterns that reveal themselves only to those willing to wait. Exploration lingers on the uncanny precision of this place. How did they know where to stand? How did they find true north without instruments we recognize? How did shadow and sight guide certainty so exact it still humbles us? No written explanation survives,
no instruction manual carved into stone. The answers have dissolved into time, leaving behind only the result, silent, confident, unwavering. The contradiction hums quietly, like distant chanting carried on evening air. We know ropes were used. We know water reflected stars. We know patience replaced haste. And yet, knowing these things does not fully satisfy the question. The precision feels too complete to belong solely to technique. Perhaps technique was never the source. Perhaps devotion was. The builders watched the sky not for answers, but for relationship. They returned night after night, season after season, letting patterns reveal themselves gradually. They trusted repetition. They trusted waiting. They trusted that alignment would announce itself when the moment was right, and when it did, they listened. Language becomes spacious here. Words slow, stretch, soften. Horizon, balance, mirror, eternal. These are not ideas to grasp tightly. They are states to rest inside. The pacing of thought slows until it nearly dissolves into sensation. Marked by the moon, the geometry changes its voice. Night settles fully now. The sharp contrast of sunset fades into layered blues and silvers. The pyramid's surface darkens, but its edges remain legible, clean lines against the sky. The angles persist even as detail disappears. The structure feels less like stone and more like presence. It does not dominate the night. It participates in it. Stars wheel overhead, ancient and unhurried. Their movement is slow enough to feel still. The pyramid holds its position beneath them, neither resisting nor imitating, simply aligning. It is not a pointer or a marker, but a listener. Meaning here does not arrive as explanation. It arrives as resonance. The listener feels it, a quiet certainty that alignment itself is enough, that understanding does not always require naming, that some truths are meant to be experienced rather than solved. As night deepens, the horizon dissolves. Earth and sky merge into one continuous darkness. The line that once separated them softens, then vanishes. Only relationship remains. The pyramid stands, holding its angle with patience. Perhaps this is why it endures, not because it resists time, but because it agrees with it. The closing reflection does not rush. It lets night fully settle, like a blanket drawn gently across the land. The plateau cools. The stars continue their endless movement. The pyramid listens, just as it always has. Meaning rests not in explanation, but in alignment, between light and shadow, between earth and sky, between what can be known and what must remain felt. As sleep approaches, the geometry fades from sight, but not from presence. It settles quietly into the mind, a reminder that balance is not something to achieve, but something to remember. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen, and in the deepening night, the pyramid holds its silence, aligned, attentive, eternal, waiting for nothing, offering everything. There is a narrow opening in the stone, easily missed. It does not announce itself with grandeur or ornament. No carved guardians stand watch. No inscription offers warning or welcome. It is simply there, a slit of darkness beneath vast weight, a passage breathing cool air into the warmth of the plateau. This is the invitation, a gate that leads not forward, but inward, a descent shaped by restraint, a silence that seems to wait for the listener rather than demand entry. As you move closer, sound changes first. Wind softens, footsteps lose their echo, the world above recedes, thinning like a memory already beginning to fade. The air grows cooler, heavier, as though the stone itself is exhaling after a long vigil beneath the sun. Attention turns inward. The passage slopes gently downward, guiding the body into shadow. Walls close in, not to confine, but to focus. Light diminishes until it becomes suggestion rather than presence. The senses adjust. Breath becomes audible, heartbeat steady. Time loosens its grip. Beneath the silence, the pyramid reveals another voice. This is not the architecture of spectacle. It is the architecture of restraint. Chambers unfold one after another, each quieter than the last. Some are complete, their surfaces smooth and deliberate. Others remain unfinished, their stone rough, bearing marks that speak of pause rather than abandonment. Corners wait. Ceilings hover low and calm. The stone does not hurry the visitor. Emotion moves gently from curiosity into hushed reverence. Here, darkness is not absence, it is presence. It presses softly against the skin, not threatening, but intimate. It feels intentional, held in place like water behind a dam. The absence of light sharpens awareness. Sound becomes rare, precious. Even thought slows, choosing its movements carefully. The actual context of these interiors emerges without instruction. These chambers are thresholds between life and afterlife, between body and name, between breath and memory. In ancient understanding, what lay beneath the earth was not merely hidden, it was transformative. Descent was not loss, but preparation. To move inward was to shed what was temporary, to approach what endured beyond form. Scrolls once spoke of this journey, though their words have thinned with time. Names have been lost, meanings softened, yet the intention remains, embedded in stone. The deeper you move, the less the chambers explain themselves. Some spaces are narrow, guiding movement with care. Others open unexpectedly, holding air like a held thought. A chamber may appear empty, then reveal itself as full of silence, full of waiting, full of something that resists naming. Deep exploration touches on emptiness as intention. Why carve rooms never meant to be filled? Why seal passages never meant to be walked again? Why invest such precision in spaces designed for stillness? Contradictions gather quietly here. Some believe these chambers were symbolic, others functional. Some see them as spiritual vessels, others as engineering necessities. Each interpretation brushes against the truth, then slips away. The quiet does not mind. It feels deliberate. Language becomes shadowed, softened by echo, hollow, womb, gate. These words do not define, they gesture. Sentences shorten, then stretch, mirroring breath as it adapts to confinement and release. The chambers seem to listen as much as they contain. In one space, sound returns faintly, a whisper bouncing gently between walls, then dissolving. In another, sound disappears entirely, swallowed by angles designed to absorb rather than reflect. The stone has been shaped not only to hold weight, but to hold silence. Marked by the moon above, though unseen here, the pyramid continues its alignment even in darkness. The chambers beneath do not contradict the geometry above, they complete it. Where the exterior speaks to the sky, the interior listens to the earth. This balance feels intentional. The body senses it before the mind does. Breath deepens, muscles loosen, the sense of self softens at the edges. In the absence of visual distraction, awareness turns inward. Memory drifts. Time becomes circular rather than linear. Where memory fades, presence remains. Some chambers feel unfinished, as if paused mid-thought. Tool marks remain visible, rough and honest. These spaces suggest choice, the decision to stop, to leave something open-ended. They remind us that not all sacred work aims for completion. Some spaces exist only to be there, holding silence, holding potential, holding nothing, and therefore everything. Perhaps these chambers were never meant to be entered repeatedly. Perhaps they were created for a single moment, a single rite, then sealed away to preserve its echo. Perhaps their true purpose was fulfilled long ago, and what remains is residue, the after-image of intention. The stone does not clarify, it holds. As the descent reaches its deepest point, the sense of direction dissolves. Up and down lose distinction. The mind releases its grip on orientation. All that remains is stillness, thick and calm. This is not a place of answers, it is a place of pause. The final reflection lingers here, in darkness that feels complete rather than empty. Nothing explains itself, nothing needs to. The chamber remains what it has always been, a held breath beneath stone. Perhaps it was never meant to be found repeatedly. Some truths are not hidden to be discovered, but preserved to remain untouched. Some spaces are sacred precisely because they resist interpretation. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. As sleep approaches, the darkness grows softer, more forgiving. The chambers recede not into fear, but into rest. The body feels heavier, grounded, held by the same stone that has held centuries. Above, the pyramid continues its silent conversation with stars. Below, the chamber listens. Between them, silence circulates, ancient, deliberate, complete, inviting the listener to release thought, release question, and rest inside the quiet certainty that not all mysteries ask to be solved. Some ask only to be entered, and then left in peace.
At the summit, the air thins. The climb ends not with a shout, but with a hush, a quiet widening of space where the sky feels closer than the ground below. The pyramid rises into this openness, unfinished, its peak flattened, waiting. Stone steps back from certainty here, leaving a small plateau where something was meant to arrive. This is the invitation, a crown that is no longer there, a breath held at the edge of completion, a place where absence shines as brightly as presence. Dawn approaches slowly. The sky lightens from indigo to pearl,
and the highest stones catch the first suggestion of warmth. Wind moves freely here, unbroken, carrying dust and silence in equal measure. The pyramid does not yet feel complete. It feels expectant, like a thought paused before its final word. It is said that every great work has a last moment, a point at which becoming gives way to being. For the pyramid, that moment belonged to the capstone, now lost, now imagined, now more powerful in its absence than it ever was in stone. Emotion lifts gently here, not into triumph, but into melancholy. There is beauty in nearing completion, but also sorrow. To finish something is to end its becoming. The builders must have known this. As the structure rose course by course, layer by layer, the summit would have drawn closer, narrowing the sky, tightening the story. Completion is fleeting. The capstone, perhaps carved from fine limestone, perhaps clad in gold or electrum, was meant to seal the form. Myths shimmer of its surface gleaming like the sun itself, a mirror catching first light and throwing it back into the heavens. Some say it was pure white, others say radiant metal. All agree it was luminous. A final stone, yes, but also a union. The spiritual meaning of this moment runs deep. To place the capstone was not merely to finish a building, it was to bind earth and sky, to close a circuit of intention that began long before the first quarry cut. The pyramid was not complete until it touched light in this final, deliberate way. Marked by the sun, the capstone would have stood as a beacon, not calling attention, but offering reflection. Dawn would strike it first, dusk would linger on it last. It would be the meeting point between human labor and cosmic rhythm. A crown without a king, a seal without a signature, a gesture offered upward. Exploration lingers on what is no longer here. The capstone is gone.
We do not know when it vanished, whether it was removed in antiquity, taken in reverence or greed, whether it fell, shattered, eroded, or was repurposed into something else entirely. No clear record remains, only speculation, drifting like dust on wind. Contradictions gather gently around this absence. Some believe it was stripped away in times of upheaval, melted down, its radiance scattered. Others imagine it still lies buried somewhere nearby, hidden beneath sand and forgetting. Some suggest it never gleamed at all, that its brilliance has been exaggerated by memory. The pyramid does not correct these stories. It allows them to coexist. Language here becomes luminous. Crown, radiance, dawn. These words glow softly, even as they point to something missing. The mind fills the gap instinctively, imagining light where there is now open sky. This imagining feels intentional. Perhaps the capstone was always meant to be temporary. Perhaps its purpose was fulfilled the moment it touched light for the first time, the moment when the pyramid stood whole, however briefly, before time began its gentle undoing. The builders may have known that nothing endures forever, not even stone crowned in gold. What endures is alignment. Standing at the summit now, the listener senses this clearly. The peak remains open, a small square of sky framed by ancient angles. Rain falls here,
Stars pass overhead. The wind speaks freely. The pyramid has not lost its voice without its crown. It has gained another kind of listening. Beneath the silence, the structure feels unfinished in a sacred way, not broken, not incomplete, but open, receptive to what continues beyond human making. The absence of the capstone invites the cosmos in, rather than sealing it out. The emotional arc settles into acceptance.
Loss is not framed as tragedy, but as transformation. The pyramid no longer declares completion, it offers continuity. Its summit no longer reflects light outward, but receives it inward. Where memory fades, presence remains. The sun rises fully now, washing the upper stones in pale gold. Light spills across the plateau far below, tracing the same paths it has traced for millennia. The missing capstone does not interrupt this ritual. The sky does not hesitate. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps the capstone's true role was to teach impermanence, to remind us that even the most deliberate creations are shaped, eventually, by letting go. That what is removed can sometimes speak more powerfully than what remains. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. The closing reflection lingers at the peak. The pyramid stands patient, uncrowned, still aligned, still attentive. It does not mourn its lost stone. It does not reach for replacement. It simply holds its form, offering its open summit to dawn, dusk, and starlight alike. Meaning does not require completion. Sometimes it requires openness. As sleep approaches, the image softens, a pyramid touching light without touching closure, an ancient form listening to the sky, breathing with the world, content in its unfinished state. The capstone that once touched light may be gone, but the light still comes. Wind moves first. Before names, before dates, before memory learns how to hold itself, wind crosses the plateau and lifts a handful of sand. The grains rise briefly, shimmer in pale light, then settle again against stone. Nothing resists them. Nothing notices. The movement is small, almost nothing at all, and yet it never stops. This is the invitation, not a beginning marked by fire or proclamation, but a whisper repeated so many times it becomes permanence, a motion so gentle it reshapes mountains, a truth spoken without words. Time enters the story quietly. The pyramid stands as it always has, its angles softened now, its surface worn smooth by countless passages of air and dust. Once sharp edges have learned patience, corners have surrendered their urgency. Stone accepts what arrives, not because it chooses to, but because endurance has taught it no other way. Beneath the silence, centuries pass. The focus widens beyond a single lifetime, beyond even a single civilization. Days gather into years, years into centuries, centuries into something harder to name. The pyramid does not measure this passing. It does not mark anniversaries or mourn losses. It simply remains, present to whatever moment arrives. Emotion softens here, settling into deep calm. Empires pass. Voices once loud enough to shake the ground fade into dust.
Banners fall, names dissolve, borders redraw themselves, then disappear again. Languages rise and crumble, beliefs sharpen, fracture, and blur. All the while, the pyramid stays, not triumphant, not defiant, simply present. Spiritual understanding frames time itself as an element, like wind, like water, like sun. It shapes without intent, it erodes without malice, it leaves without apology. Time does not aim to destroy, it aims to continue. The stone understands this. Each grain of sand that settles against its face is a conversation. Each night of cooling, each day of heat, each rare rain that darkens its surface briefly before vanishing, all of these are gestures in a long dialogue between matter and duration. Marked by the moon, shadows change their patterns. What once aligned perfectly shifts just enough to remind us that even precision bends to time. The pyramid's form remains recognizable, but it is no longer exact in the way it once was. This is not loss, it is transformation.
Exploration drifts gently through eras of reuse and forgetting. Stones once placed with reverence are pried loose and carried away, built into walls, mosques, homes. The pyramid becomes a quarry again, its sacredness briefly replaced by convenience. What was once untouchable becomes material, and then, centuries later, sacredness returns. History folds over itself like layers of sand. What is forgotten is rediscovered. What is reused is mourned. What is studied is misunderstood, then studied again. Each generation approaches the pyramid with different questions, different assumptions, different hopes. Contradictions accumulate softly. Some see tomb, some see temple, some see machine, some see symbol. The pyramid does not correct them. It absorbs interpretation the way it absorbs wind, allowing it to pass, leaving only the faintest trace. Language becomes drifting here. Dust, patience, sleep, return. These words do not move forward. They circle, they settle. They repeat with small variations, like seasons revisiting familiar ground. Where memory fades, presence remains. There are moments when the pyramid nearly disappears, swallowed by sand, half buried, its lower courses hidden from view. For long stretches of time, it rests in this partial invisibility, seen only as a hill, a shape, a rumor. Travelers pass without knowing what lies beneath their feet. Then the sand shifts again. Wind uncovers what it once concealed. Edges re-emerge. Stone meets light. The pyramid returns to sight, not as something new, but as something remembered by the land itself. Rediscovery feels less like revelation and more like recognition, as if the earth is saying, "Yes, you were always here." Spiritual calm deepens as the listener senses the scale of this endurance. Human lives flash briefly against the stone, brief sparks of warmth, effort, meaning. They matter deeply in their moment, and yet they are carried forward, absorbed, made part of something larger. The pyramid does not diminish human significance. It reframes it. It reminds us that meaning does not depend on permanence.
that influence does not require survival, that even what fades contributes to what remains. Night after night, stars continue their passage overhead. Constellations shift with slow inevitability. The sky itself changes over millennia. Polaris drifts, Orion tilts. The heavens are not fixed, and yet the pyramid continues to face their movement with quiet attention. Time shapes everything, including time. The final reflection settles not in the past, but in the present moment. Here, now. A listener breathing quietly. A stone resting under stars. Sand gathered in small drifts along ancient faces. Stone and time coexist. Neither wins, neither loses. Perhaps it was never meant to be a contest. Perhaps endurance is not about resisting change, but about accepting it so fully that change becomes indistinguishable from stillness. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. As sleep approaches, the image grows softer. Wind moves again. Sand lifts, falls. The pyramid stands, neither ancient nor modern, but simply there. Time shapes everything, including time. And the world continues, held in quiet balance between what passes and what remains.
Night returns to the plateau the way it always has, without announcement. There's no threshold sound, no signal that the day has fully loosened its hold. Light simply thins, heat withdraws. Shadows lengthen until they join one another, dissolving into a single unbroken calm. The stars emerge quietly, as if they have been waiting just beyond sight. This is the invitation, the same land as before, yet transformed, the same stone, now listening more deeply, a place where questions soften and remain unanswered by design. The pyramids rise out of darkness like remembered thoughts. Their outlines are less precise now, their edges blurred by night air and distance. They do not dominate the plateau, they share it. Wind passes freely around them, dust settles at their bases. Silence gathers in their angles. Beneath the silence, the world feels held. The plateau breathes differently at night. The air cools, the sand releases the heat it carried all day, grain by grain. The stone exhales slowly, its temperature dropping in a rhythm as old as the desert itself. Nothing rushes, nothing demands attention. The focus here is no longer on how the pyramids were built. It is on why they continue to matter, even now, when their builders are long gone, their names thinned into myth, their methods debated endlessly and never resolved. Emotion settles into sacred uncertainty. Standing here under a sky scattered with stars, it becomes clear that no single explanation could ever feel complete. Measurements fall silent, diagrams lose their urgency, theories drift apart like clouds. What remains is presence, the undeniable feeling that something essential is happening simply by being here. The pyramids continue to build something invisible, not stone upon stone, but awe within the observer, humility within the mind, stillness within the breath. this building never stops. Whispers tell us that the ancients understood this kind of construction, that they knew monuments were not finished when the last stone was placed, but when silence began to work upon them, when time, weather, memory, and forgetting were allowed to take their turns. The pyramids were never meant to explain themselves. They were meant to endure. Exploration now allows every contradiction to remain exactly where it is. The ramps may have been straight or curved, external or hidden. The stones may have moved by muscle, by clever engineering, by techniques we no longer fully grasp. The chambers may have held bodies, symbols, or nothing at all. Each possibility rests comfortably beside the others. None are forced away. Beneath the silence, the unsolved is honored. This honoring feels different from ignorance. It is not a failure to know. It is a choice to allow mystery its proper weight. Some truths collapse when handled too tightly. Some insights arrive only when questions are left open, breathing. Language becomes lighter here, almost transparent. Hush, breath, starlight. These words float rather than land. They do not ask to be defined. They ask to be felt. The listener's breathing slows without effort. Shoulders soften. The mind releases its need to conclude. Night makes room for this surrender. Marked by the moon, the pyramids appear less like structures and more like ideas, geometric suggestions resting between earth and sky. Moonlight traces their faces faintly, not revealing detail, but confirming presence. The stone reflects just enough light to be known, not enough to be examined. They are content with this distance. Time stretches again, but now it feels gentle rather than vast. The centuries that passed before feel close, layered beneath the present moment like thin sheets of glass. One could imagine the builders resting somewhere beyond sight, their work finished, their intentions released. Yet the building continues. Each person who stands here adds something new, a moment of attention, a pause, a breath held slightly longer than usual. The pyramids absorb these offerings without acknowledgement. They do not respond outwardly. They respond inwardly, shaping the observer rather than themselves. This may be their final function.
Not to stand as answers, but as invitations. Invitations to slow down, to notice alignment rather than dominance, to accept that some questions are companions, not problems. Where memory fades, sensation remains. The wind shifts direction briefly. A grain of sand lifts, touches stone, falls again. A star brightens momentarily as the eye adjusts. These small movements feel amplified in the quiet, as though the night itself is participating in the listening. Nothing feels empty here. Silence is full. The plateau holds the pyramids. The pyramids hold the sky. The sky holds the stars. And somewhere within this vast holding, the listener is also held, gently, without demand. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. The final answer, the definitive explanation, the moment when mystery gives way to certainty. Perhaps the true gift of the pyramids is that they refuse closure. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. As the chapter draws toward its end, there is no conclusion to reach, only a soft settling. The night deepens, The stars continue their slow procession. The pyramids remain, unchanged and changing, solid and receptive. They do not speak, they invite. Invite us to rest within the unknown. Invite us to accept not knowing as a form of wisdom. Invite us to sleep without needing to solve what came before. The silence that still builds does not add stone to stone. It adds quiet to the heart. And in that quiet, beneath the ancient stars, the pyramids stand, not as monuments to answers, but as companions to wonder, allowing the world and the listener to drift gently into rest. And now the work is done. The final stone rests in place. The voices of the builders fade into the distance. What remains is silence and a monument that will outlast empires, languages, even memory itself. The pyramids stand beneath the stars just as they were intended to do, not shouting their story, only waiting for time to pass gently around them. If your thoughts have wandered, let them keep drifting. If sleep has already found you, allow it to deepen. Thank you for sharing this quiet moment in history with Twilight Tale. May the ancient world watch over your rest, and may tomorrow feel lighter because tonight was calm. Good night, and sleep well.